Good to have everybody together. Well, everybody that's here, we know that there's another everybody that lives out in the universe, but here we are together. And Leo's background describes exactly what we are talking about today. So very grateful that he has given us a visual demonstration of what clutter looks like and the importance of decluttering. So I'm going to come to Leo pretty soon, but I do actually want to start with Trevor, because Trevor, you certainly stimulated this for me, because over a couple of weeks now you've been talking about decluttering your office, maybe under duress. But tell us what that has been about, and actually, what is it? How has it helped or not helped?
Well, it doesn't help my state of mind. Simple as that, because over a period of 50 odd years of not being the smartest guy in town, I've had to go out and try and find out what the smart people all say. So I've collected a few books, and I think at last count there were about 2,500 odd books, and I mean they were, they were nestled nicely in little cupboards under t-shirts and pants and behind the laundry and the vacuum cleaner and every little space I could find. And for some reason, my wife put her foot down this year and said, "That's it. You get rid of all these books. It's you or the books, or both. You go." Yeah, but it's been a very interesting exercise, and it really fits in with my view of simplify, 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 because certainly I think what COVID-19 and 2020 did for us was gave us the opportunity to recognize that we live in a world filled with noise. And for us, especially us here in South Africa, being, I think we're at day 330 or close of lockdown at various different states of lockdown. But there was one period there where I think we were about 3 months, maybe 12 odd weeks, where we were completely shut down, and no one could move. We stayed in our own environments. And if people, well, I'm going to talk for myself. I loved it. Because there was no noise, there was none of the traffic around, people couldn't drive, there were no trucks. I mean, I'm a long way away from freeways, but in the middle of the night, you can still hear this sound. In Africa travels miles. So this decluttering exercise has been fantastic, but it has been fraught with extreme stress for me, because I discovered old friends, people in books who have been influential in my life that were hiding behind. In fact, there were some behind toilet rolls in the toilet, which must have been in-depth reading for me some 30 or 40 years ago, which as I try and put them in piles and take them into the box, I then take the box and I hide it behind here on the table, but my wife's rumbled me on that one, because I try and go back through the box and convince herself. And I know these people are friends because inside the books, they are marked with yellow highlighters. And I've got yellow highlighters identifying things that I really enjoyed. The other thing about this decluttering exercise I just want to share with you. What I actually noticed is that all of these books, you spend all this time, we go through all of the books, but there's just some simple 1, 2, 3 things in those thousands and thousands of words in each book that when push comes to shove, of all the millions and millions of words that we've actually read that have been brought in, when you've got to take an instant decision, you don't go back and you turn around and say, well, look, in the next 10 seconds, I want to quickly review in my mind millions and millions of words just to make certain that I actually take the right decision. All of that input is distilled down to an instantaneous decision that you actually have to make. So decluttering for me just takes me all the way back to, it's a nice environment. It is much cleaner, I must admit. It's nice to be, but I do love Leo's environment there. I think I'd be very comfortable in that environment. But I do like the open space and cleanliness down there. And I do recognize that this decluttering exercise is good for the soul. So that's perhaps what I can share for you. I've enjoyed it. Can someone look after some of my books in the garage? Jasper, have you got some spare space at a conference facility, a couple of rooms? I'll allow you to borrow some of the books and set up a library.
I'm certainly, a big part of me is so tempted to say, just show me what books you have. But I know that I will be in such trouble here with Helen that I'd rather resist that temptation.
And
I have two Wendy houses that are garage sizes, full of stuff. So we can empty some of that out for Trevor's books.
well, I did want to say that I have a friend, he subsequently passed on at a good age, who made a lot of money from storage. He just built a whole lot of those storage garages. And you know, it's just one capital outlay. And then after that, it's all you're paying for is security. And the money keeps rolling in because people want to keep their stuff. They never look at it. They never go back to it. But they keep it in storage because you never know one day. So, Leo, let's come to your Wendy houses and your background. What is decluttering?
Well, I wasn't going to talk about my Wendy houses, but I have two Wendy houses that are garage sizes. So they're 3 meters by 6 meters. And they're both full. One is full of dad's stuff and one is full of my stuff that I've even brought from the old house to this house. So one day I'll get to empty those. I am a little bit of a hoarder, and that's a bit of a challenge. And I wasn't going to talk about that either today. Decluttering is actually such an interesting thing because I think one being a hoarder, you know, when you yesterday talked about, 6,000 messages, well, I don't know how to get rid of these things, and you're always fearful that you could be losing out, of some message that might be important, which obviously isn't. I mean, do I need to keep all the one-time shopping adverts, But today I wanted to talk about decluttering in the sense of the baggage that we carry with us. So, for 20 years, 22 years, I've been with a particular company and loyal to the nth degree, refusing to look at anything else. And in the beginning of this year, I got totally fed up, and I said, well, they've just been taken over, and I said, look, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to now start looking at other things. And it's been absolutely amazing how just lobbing off that dead branch has freed a whole lot of things. There was a relationship that I've been nurturing. This person's been depressed and negative, and I thought, you know what, let's just walk with them in the journey of helping them through this space, and through their lack of filter, started criticizing me. And I thought, you know what, my mother did that. I don't need this in my life. So I lobbed them off. and a guy owed me 56,000 rand, and the anger that I was carrying with me all this time. I mean, you know, Tuesday about a month ago, I don't know, it all came back, this anger of me doing all of this stuff for this guy. He owes me all of this money, and you know, I'll never get, and I lobbed it off. You know, I sent him a gift, freeing him from owing me any money. And you know, I was probably never going to see the money, but so the gift was actually to me, where freeing him from that debt unconditionally. You know, because he owes me nothing, I can't be angry anymore. You know, and I think these were quite interesting moments for me this year, which have all been freeing, to be able for the tree to grow new flowers. And I think decluttering for me was around that. You know, and so these are quite major lobbing off things, which I think part of decluttering is you know, tidying it up, throwing it away. And you know, I mean, the memories are you know, those memories are good to throw away. You know, some of the clutter that I see in the background, you know, that to throw that away is hard. But yeah, so that's my contribution to decluttering.
Thanks, Leo. I love that. That perspective and this baggage, and we do talk about baggage as baggage. And Edward and I have gone backwards and forwards about this lobbying off of the dead branch. I also love that picture. So I think it's a very powerful picture of letting go the dead weight, right? Yeah. Thanks so much. And so, Vinay, I cannot imagine that you are a hoarder or anything other than somebody who has no clutter. but reveal all.
Well, I'm a Cancerian. Cancerians collect things. And yes, Edward. But I have two it's quite interesting. I have two very separate parts of my life. I mean, my office that I work in, there is not a single bit of clutter. My cupboards are clean. There's nothing extra. My desk, when I'm working on something, I have one file on my desk, and that gives me a sense of order in my brain, because I think one of the important things about decluttering is actually quietening your brain. And if you've got lots of clutter lying around, you sort of, it is very distracting. In my house, however, I do collect things. I have got memorabilia going back 30 years and there are things that you can't declutter. And I mentioned recently to my son, would he like all my photo albums? Because I've got a cupboard full of beautiful photo albums with, you know, lots of memories in. And he said, no, everything's digital, just like ditch them. But I can't bring myself to do it. So I have a spare room that's got all my clutter in. But I also have lots, I'm a bowl collector. I can't resist different bowls, and then I don't buy one of them, you know, I buy 8 because I've got an 8-seater table. So I find it very difficult to throw those kind of things away. But it's quite interesting that my work life is very organized. My mind is very clear when I'm in my office, but at home it's not quite so. It's a bit cluttered. And just when you mentioned that you want to talk about the subject, I thought, well, I need to pick one of them and decide which one I'm going to talk about. And then I thought, no, well, they're both integral parts of my personality. So I think you can, as long as you separate the clutter out for the important things in your life. I think it's very important. The one thing I have decluttered over the last few years is the amounts of acquaintances that I felt, like Leo, that I had to keep in touch with these people. And I had to, make contact with them. And I have decluttered my social life in that now the people I mix with are positive, energizing, and if they do have a problem, it's something that they're prepared to tackle and deal with. And I must admit, 2020 was a good year for decluttering, and it was good, and my mind is nice and clear. And Leo, I couldn't live like that.
I'll let Leo find his unmute button to say something.
Yeah, silly. I am trying to clear out so that I have a nice clean space around me. So, I mean, I'm getting better, but it's still a long way away.
Thanks, Renee. I think I love this picture of this. You know, when I was growing up, I shared a room with my sister, and she was very messy. She just, when the laundry arrived, it just piled up on her bed. She didn't put things away. They just were all over the place. And I was a neat freak. So I just drew an imaginary line along through the bedroom, because it was the only, because I fought and tried and begged and cried and whatever it did, nothing changed. So there was just this imaginary line, and then that was her bedroom was messy, my bedroom was neat. And so I just have this picture of Renee's office and her house and these two lives living side by side in perfect unity, which we'll be talking about later. Jasper, what is decluttering and the power of decluttering? How does it impact your life?
Well, as the topic started, I realized that, well, the other word for decluttering is then simplifying. But I realized in terms of actual clutter, I go through cycles. So from time to time, I've got an office upstairs, and now with lockdown, I've moved down to the front office where we receive guests and stuff. So here in the front office, I don't carry much stuff. I literally just have my notes and working notes around me. But as I work through stuff and I complete things, they tend to pile up here behind me. So there's a whole lot of stuff that I promised to file, but somehow I just haven't got to the filing stage yet. Now my files is upstairs in my office, and depending on, so when I go through massive changes, call it career shifts or something like that, then I have to rework my office and organize it. And every time I truck away about a trailer or 2-3 trailers full of stuff that I've piled up, that I thought, notes and stuff that I thought I will get back to one day. But I'm slowly getting to the point which Trevor said, you've already internalized those thoughts, so you can pull it out and redo it if you have to. So it's getting easier to throw away stuff. So I can see that I have another round of throwing away stuff awaiting me in terms of my office side. Then, so I'm not there in the physical sense so much, but then on the business side, I'm certainly in a process of simplifying, but then it's also kind of a two-edged sword that as you move on, other opportunities come in. But I have, there's one of the opportunities that I've started to just cut off. And I have a thing that over year in December to January, I use it to, and the same with around about my birthday, to basically just take a couple of days and just reflect. So take stock, and what I then see doesn't fit into the pattern of my life that I'm laying out. I then identify that, and then I start the process of cutting that out or cutting that off or clearing that up. So this last December and January, I used that to clarify a lot of processes that was not working for us, that now definitely a lot more simpler and cleaner. But I think Leo had that image of cutting off dead branches. I'm more on a analogy of, there's the story of the eagle. So the eagle lives and is energetic, and then round about its 40th year, it goes and sits in a quiet place up there on the ledge, and then goes through a process to pluck out all its feathers, so it has no feathers left, and then pull out his talons, and also then hit his beak until the beak comes loose. So he's literally almost naked, sitting there on the ledge. And then slowly over time, the beak grows back, the talons comes back very sharp, and the feathers comes back, and then he's released into a new life, and he lives another 40 years because he can now catch prey, because his ability to see hasn't diminished. He just needed to get his beak sharp and his talons sharp and his new feathers. And I think maybe if I look at us bunch of eagles here sitting, that's the process we're in, to say, okay, let's get sharp for the next stage. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Jasper. I love that picture, seeing as I think if I work backwards from I'm living to 100, I haven't quite got, yes, I've got just over 40 years. So I'm exactly at the stage of plucking out my feathers, looking awful, in the hope that I will be restored in some way for the next journey. So thank you for that. I love that picture. And Edward, decluttering.
Yeah, I think Leo and I are sort of well ahead on the losing our feathers stage. I was horrified by these 6,000 unopened emails, because, and not probably for the reason you think, because those 6,000 emails are sitting on a server somewhere in a data center. And I think we heard from Leo, he's got a similar way. So that's 1/3 on here have got loads of emails sitting there. Multiply that by the number of people in the world, and that is a mega amount of data. And what people don't realize is that data centers account for more greenhouse gas production than flying. So actually those emails are damaging the environment. So I'd suggest you delete them all, that you unsubscribe from any list that you're not interested in. And also, when you reply to emails, don't reply to all unless you have to. And don't copy people in unless it's absolutely necessary. And if you're sending photographs, don't send high res unless you need to send high res. So that's my rant over. That's my green message over. But people don't realize, and actually, you know, companies like Google, Microsoft are doing a lot to make their data centers more environmentally friendly. They're investing in green energy. They're putting the data centers underground in cold countries, because the big problem is you have to cool these things. You have to cool data centers down, and the cooling takes a lot of power. Anyhow, back to the subject. Quite a few years ago, I entered a thing called the Xterra, which is an extreme triathlon. And I thought, well, I'd better upgrade my mountain biking skills. And I think, well, actually the word is get some mountain biking skills. So I took some lessons, and from this really, really young guy. It's amazing how young this tutor was. And the first thing he said was, he says, as you're hurtling along through the woods, you're taking in a lot of information. And he said, most of it is noise, it's just clutter. And I think someone said, quieting the noise in your brain, he says, you've got to learn to just eliminate all that clutter. So you're only focused on the important information, because then your brain can process that really quickly and you can ride your mountain bike well and fast. If you're trying to cope with all that clutter, you can't go fast. So declutter your mind. I think Verne said that as well. And I think you can probably see over one of my shoulders on the wall a piece of paper with some post-it notes on it. And that is actually my novel. I take stuff out of my mind and stick it on the wall. It's a big long piece of paper. It goes round 2 walls. Because that just takes all those thoughts out of my mind. So I've decluttered it. And the other thing that I learned, there's 2 periods of my life when I've been really, really happy and I've not had anything. I think I told you I lived on Dartmoor in a 1-man tent for 6 months. When you have all your stuff in your backpack and you have to carry it, you only have what is essential. And the same when I walked across the wilds of Scotland and I had to carry all I needed. You only take what was essential. And I was happy. The only thing I had extra was a paperback book of crosswords. I love crosswords. And this is a bit indelicate, but each completed page had another function. So, you know, you don't need stuff. You just don't need stuff. I'm a bit like Trevor, though. Books I do have quite a few of, and I've not got round to some of them. I just cannot get rid of. I love them. And most of them are actually biographies. They're not management books, because I think management books tend to go through cycles. But the only one I think that stood the test of time is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But yeah, I've got Fermat's Last Theorem here. I've got The Performing Edge. I've got Brain Training for Runners, Scott Jurek, Eat and Run. I've got a couple of novels which I really like. Linda LaPlante. I very seldom read novels twice, but those I've read quite a few times. But you don't need. I see Trevor. Yeah, Dartmoor has got a prison. In the centre of Dartmoor, there's it used to be a high security prison. It's not anymore. But actually, Trevor, I lived on the moor, which is a remote place. And Dartmoor is a huge piece of open countryside in Devon, which is in southwest England. And you can go for days without seeing anyone. It's beautiful. And I just had my tent. I had nature. I had my crossword for the evening, and I was happy. You don't need stuff. But I think that principle is, if you can get stuff out of your mind can think a lot better. So that's my views on decluttering, and please do declutter your email inbox. It will save the world.
Thanks for that, Edward. You know, you've pressed all my buttons, so. Decluttering. I've watched a couple of programs that I have sort of stimulated this thinking more and more, and I realize I'm drawn to them because I like this idea of living simply. And it's been something that has really challenged me over the years, is how do I live as simply as possible? And, you know, a couple of these programs, tiny house, I'm fascinated by tiny houses because these are little caravans really that have been renovated. I'm not saying that they are simplistic, because they are engineering feats of note, but the whole thing is to pare down to just the essentials that you need, and living mortgage free is another fascinating program, just in terms of people's thinking about not burdening themselves with debt for decades. And what does it mean to bring your life down to, again, the bare essentials, so that either thriftily to pay off the mortgage quickly or to live in such a way that you don't incur such a huge debt. And then the last thing is, and it's what is being known more and more as a minimalist movement, which is not just an art movement, but is actually a movement to say, let's become, so to become a minimalist, that's the core. And the purpose of that, and what they're saying that is that when you, again, you live with what you need, not from an aesthetic point of view. You can have the things that you love, but to have the things that matter the most. So the point about minimalism is that you cut out the clutter so that what remains are the things that are really important to you. And that when you have the things that are really important to you, both from a physical, mental, emotional point of view, you live with gratitude. You live with a greater sense of appreciation for what you have, a contentment that says, I don't need more to make me happy. What I have is sufficient for my needs, and I'm content. And and this is where we have to challenge ourselves, because no matter what you say, we are constantly, when I say what you say, we're not immune to the bombardment of advertising that says you have to have this, your life will only be complete when you do this. And I'll just end with the story of my husband who stayed in a home in Chicago. He was attending a conference, and he was part of the conference was that the people that lived in the area would have conference members as guests in their homes. So he was a complete stranger in these people's homes, which was wonderful. He got to know them. But the wife had a mental, I want to say hissy fit, but she just had a complete tantrum that her life was falling apart. Things were awful. She was just in a meltdown of note. And when her husband said, so, what can I do? How can I help you? She said, I need that lamp that, I want, if you buy me that lamp, then I'll be fine. So off he went in the dead of night, bought the lamp, and she was fine again. So, and it's just, what have we persuaded ourselves that we need for the sake of our emotional and mental well-being, and replacing stuff for, the walking through the woods, Edward? Just, I don't know if I could live in a tent on the moors for 6 months, but I could walk on the moors for a day and it would really work well for me. So, but then of course I would have to take a plane to get to the moors, which would be I'd be increasing my footprint. So now I'm in a confusion. So
just delete the emails and that'll make up for the flight.
Okay. Deal. I can do the flight guilt-free if I do my emails. Okay. So Trevor, tell us about this image and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, I've just got to share with you this little pile of books. There are about 5 or 6 different certificates and diplomas that I obviously collected over a period of time. And what I identified is that each of these piles were the actual required reading to actually achieve those certificates and diplomas. And were those certificates and diplomas of any use? Really not at all. It's what was in the mind. They're actually up on the wall. But my big problem was I didn't want to get rid of them when I realized how much work I actually went through to actually get those certificates and diplomas, but they've all gone.
It's a great illustration. So I think the topic for tomorrow is based on our conversation today. What is really important to you? What can you not live without? So let's leave it at that. What can you not live without besides the essentials, right? Air, it. You can't live without it.
I can't live without being ribbed by Trevor.
It's become a whole new normal. Okay, so see you tomorrow. What's life's essentials for you?
See you in a couple of hours, Lee.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.